Here's another video from the great Thomas Sowell with the help of John Stossel and the Rubin Report discussing the problem with Marxism, which is essentially everything, right? Marxism was a total failure. Thomas Sowell has been quite critical of Marxism since he worked for government years ago, as he should be. He's actually nicer than I would probably be talking about Marx because Marx has quite a negative reputation. Insisted that his children refer to him using satanic nicknames, insisted that his wife refer to him using satanic nicknames, and his friend Friedrich Engels referred to him as the dark-skinned Moor, the man of 10,000 devils. That's how Engels referred to Marx, which is absurd. But anyways, Thomas Sowell quickly realized the total failures of Marxism and adopted his worldview accordingly. And thank God he did, because he's quite possibly the greatest philosopher in American history. I highly recommend reading him. Pick up a book, any book, wherever you can. I really like Cosmic Quest for Justice. That's a favorite of mine. But and Vision of the Anointed as well is a fantastic book. But any book you pick up by Sowell will change your life. So I highly recommend him.
After last summer's protests, experts declared what America must do for Black Americans.
The only way to close a wealth gap is by transferring wealth.
We have to abolish policing.
Reparations.
Listening to them, I kept hearing the voice of Tom Sowell.
I haven't been able to find a single country in the world where the policies that are being advocated for blacks in the United States have lifted any people out of poverty.
Sowell's an economist who writes great books about economics and culture. Today, he defends free markets and criticizes the conceit of political planners. But he once was a Marxist.
What was your wake up to what was wrong with that line of thinking?
Facts.
Thomas Sowell was born in North Carolina at the start of the Great Depression. His father died before he was born, his mother soon after. When he was 9, a relative took him to Harlem.
We were much poorer than the people in Harlem or most anywhere else today. But in another sense, in the sense of the things you need to get ahead, I was enormously more fortunate than most black kids today.
Partly because a friend showed him the Harlem Public Library.
When you start getting in the habit of reading when you're 8 years old, that's a different ballgame.
His reading and early life experiences turned him into a Marxist.
So I would take the Fifth Avenue bus, pass all these Lord and Taylor and all these fancy places, and then suddenly there were the tenements. And I wondered, why is this? It's so different. And nothing in the schools or most of the books seemed to deal with that. And Marx dealt with that.
What then changed him was his first job.
I was a summer intern at the U.S. Department of Labor. One of my biggest concerns was about minimum wages. At first I thought, well, this is good because all these people are poor and they'll get a little higher income. And so that'll be helpful. And then as I studied economics, I began to see, well, there's a downside. They may lose their jobs completely. And when I came up with how we might test this, I was waiting to hear congratulations, you see, that I had this. And I could see these people were stunned. They said, oh, this idiot has stumbled on something that will ruin us all. And I realized the U.S. Department of Labor had its own agenda and interests. And that did not necessarily mean that whether...
Right? People are self-interested. Bureaucrats are particularly self-interested and don't care about efficiency, right? As Thomas Sowell himself would point out in other instances, the bureaucrats really only care about following policy, not about being efficient, and that's quite unfortunate for the rest of us.
Poor people lost their jobs for minimum wages or got higher pay was their highest priority.
He found out that people in the government didn't give a rip whether or not it worked or didn't work. They were simply implementing the policy. And that's what shocked him and caused him to begin to rethink lots of his assumptions.
These video clips come from a new documentary about Sowell.
This whole notion that the black family has always been disintegrating, that is nonsense.
What I find most interesting about Sowell's work is that it utterly contradicts what Americans are taught about black poverty. Sowell's claims of systemic racism in America are propaganda.
If you go back into the 20s, you find that married couple families were much more prevalent among blacks then. As late as 1930, blacks had lower unemployment rates than whites. So all these things that we complain about and attribute to the era of slavery, those things should have been worse in the past than in the present.
Sowell says the bigger cause of blacks' problems today is welfare.
You began to have the mindset that goes with the welfare state, so that there was no stigma any longer attached, for example, to being on relief.
The things they thought were going to help did not help, and in many cases made things worse. Sowell concluded that many government programs did much more harm than good because of affirmative action.
Something like one.
As I said in another video, let's remember that food stamps were only created after the US government burnt tons of food in the 1930s, culled hundreds of thousands of cows, culled 6 million pigs, and that led to massively higher prices that regular people could no longer afford. And even to this day, food prices are intentionally kept higher. We subsidize farmers to not farm, corporate farms to not farm. The family farms are all gone. I mean, they were annihilated by the policies of FDR, as well as some future presidents.
1/4 of all the black students going to MIT do not graduate. You're talking about a pool of people whom you are artificially turning into failures by mismatching them with the school.
Saying such things doesn't make Sowell popular with today's political elites, but he doesn't seem to care.
Thomas.
Sowell's best criticism of social justice is probably The Cosmic Quest for Justice. I read that book twice in a row. Never done that before, but it really is perfectly explains the problems with social justice in the university system and in our leftist institutions.
Absolutely fearless. He will not compromise any of his opinions for the sake of social politeness.
And so today's politically correct media rarely give his work the attention it deserves.
The media, the television and the print media, they've wised up. You can't argue with Tom, so you might as well hide what he's doing. And that's what they're doing. They're just ignoring what he's written because there's no way that they can argue with Tom Sowell.
Today, Sowell is a scholar at Stanford's Hoover Institution. He continues to write books about public policy. You can watch the full Sowell documentary at any of these sites starting next week.
Love the Free to Choose Network. So you should definitely all check out this documentary on Thomas Sowell. It's great stuff. All right, thanks for watching. Please like and share. It's much appreciated by everyone.